Yes. When you wake up and you feel like you need a little up, when you're down and out and you need to get a little higher. If you feel like you need a blessing and you feel a little high today, welcome to the church of Cali High. Cali High. Cali High. Yo!
Welcome to Cali High episode 38. This is your host, Chenzo Nico, and our guest this week is Jordan Webb, a talented young hip-hop artist from Nashville, Tennessee. Jordan is a member of the Fourth Eye Tribe, an arts collective here in LA, has several amazing releases, and recently helped write the new Cali High theme, which he sings lead and background vocals on. He calls his style retro-futuristic, and is one of the most real writers we know of. Stay tuned for a very cool and candid interview featuring his video, Back and Forth. All right, let's talk to Jordan. Cali High is blessed to be here today with Jordan Webb, a young hip-hop artist and the guy that actually sang lead on the Cali High new theme song. Also a member of the Fourth Eye Tribe. Jordan, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, on this beautiful sunny morning.
It's great to have you, bro. So, you want to give our audience a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
So I grew up in Franklin, Tennessee, which is right outside of Nashville. It's about 30 minutes outside of the city. Mm-hmm. When we moved there, when I was a kid, it was like there was nothing there, like just the mall. That was probably the biggest thing in the town. It was very like dusty country, like suburb. And yeah, I had a really interesting upbringing. I guess because the city was so small and just the way that like Nashville itself and Middle Tennessee is really small. So my perception of, I guess, what was worth aspiring to reach or what it was worth getting to when I was a kid was just like, I need to get to Nashville because like Nashville's the big city and like that's gonna take me far. And then I got to Nashville when I was in college and I was like, oh, this is like 2 streets and some like clubs. That's it. Like ain't no big city. It's a large town.
But they got a river.
Oh, they do have a river and a bridge too, several bridges.
It's kind of like a river valley, right?
Yeah, it definitely the Cumberland cuts right through downtown. But I had to learn. I learned to love Nashville for what it had to offer. But I definitely was a little duped by the whole big city thing. But yeah, I was raised by my lovely mother and my grandparents. Shout out to my grandparents for sure. They have held me down for hella years and really, I guess, supported me in various ways.
That's cool.
Yeah,
respect
for sure.
To the fam.
No, for sure.
Well, need support. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. And like growing up, like I was a really talkative kid, and so like I really thank them for just putting up with my talkative ass and listening to what I had to say because I had a lot of shit to say. So goddamn.
We know how that is.
Yeah, man. But yeah, and I finished school in Belmont and which is in Nashville, and then after that I subsequently stayed in Nashville for another I think 6 years, and before I moved out to California. But that was like the foundation of everything before I left for sure. For sure.
That's cool. Yeah. And so who are some of your musical influences?
Ooh, that's always a tough one for me because I find myself more often than not being drawn to be influenced by people around me and people that I make music with. So like people like Ade, Adonai, Namir Blade, K-Wix, Prolific, all of them. The people you create with. The people I create with. They really drive me as far as inspiration goes. Like I hear things and new approaches, and I think because I know them personally, it can help me kind of piece together how they came about that, or I can even pick their brains. Like, how did you think about this melody? Or, like, what were you thinking when you wrote these bars? Like, that's crazy. I would have never thought about that. And like, it helps me unlock levels of like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I don't need to be as serious all the time on this, or like, I can have a little bit more fun in these ways. And, like, these are some ways I can diversify.
A different perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it means more creativity.
Exactly. And I find that like most of the time with my inspiration and just like who I'm listening to, if they really, really inspire me, like something in me is just like, I have to go meet that person. Like I have to go see them and shake their hand or like whatever. And in a funny way, a lot of the musical influences when I was growing up, a lot of these people I listened to, like Brian Brown and Petty and Stan and G Slab, and these were artists that were in Nashville, in the city, and I was in high school. Like I just want to rap like them and blah blah blah. And then like now I'm friends with all of them, you know, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of calling these people friends. So
that is cool.
Yeah, it's really a blessing, and I think, you know, it's something unique though too about Nashville and just growing up in an area with a lot of music and not necessarily accessibility, but a lot of music.
It gets in your blood.
Yeah, it does. And you know, when you have the people that you looked up to inspiration wise, even as a kid, you know, as an adult, they're you know, they're passing you the blunt, you know, you standing there having conversations at the party, you feel like you a celebrity, you know? Man, it's like
I'm in with the crowd.
Exactly. And it's like the world might not know about this exact moment in time, but at that time I was like, yeah, like I'm him, yeah, like this is fucking awesome.
That's cool, bro. Well, I'm glad you're out in LA.
Hey, me fucking too.
So when did you come to LA?
So I moved to LA last September in the middle of the pandemic. Just
perfect.
like, you know, what better time to make the move you need to make? Like, you know, but I actually...
We had better vaccine choices?
I mean, hey, you know, better outside to look at from inside, you know? No, I actually moved to the Bay Area about 2 years ago for a job opportunity out there at this tech company. The plan the whole time was to move to LA. That was never not my plan. It was just, how was I going to get there? And I figured, well, it's probably cheaper to move in California than it is to move from the South to California. Yeah. So I had them foot the bill to get me out to the Bay.
Cool.
And then some
smart move.
Yeah, you know, and then, you know, some shit went down, as shit tends to go down at tech companies. And we parted ways. And after that, I was just like, well, cool. Now I have nothing holding me back from going to LA, and got my little monies together and floated down here. And it's been pretty much, life's been on go ever since.
Excellent. Excellent. So, let me talk about your music a little bit.
Hell yeah.
On your two-piece EP that you just released, and I'm going to say that's spelled TWOPEACE.
Hell yeah, yeah.
Okay. It seems like two songs that involve the same person. What about Sore Loser and Care For Me?
Oh, that's so funny. So Sore Loser and Care For Me, written a year apart. Care For Me was written a year prior. Sore Loser was written, that was actually one of the first songs I wrote when I got to LA. There's a lot of situationship shit happening out here. And I ain't gonna lie, I got a little caught up. So Sore Loser was written about kind of a summation of a lot of the romantic experiences I've had just from living in California in general. I'm a very authentic, or I like to think I'm a very authentic person.
Hold on a second.
For sure.
We'll come back to that authenticity as soon as the plane makes its trip over our house.
Yeah, so I try to keep my authenticity really thorough when it comes to my music, when it comes to writing, interacting with people, friends, regardless. I try to be like the same person I am in life, on the music, and everywhere else. So
hard on the sleeve, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, that has gotten me into trouble before, and you know, it gives me a lot of opportunity to learn, I think. And Sore Loser was really, in an ironic way, both musically something I had to learn through, and life-wise I had to learn through. So that was the first song I've ever actually like sang for real. So
instead of just like a hip hop,
instead of just like verse, straight rapping, and you know, that was the first one I actually had like a strong melody with. And
well, you got a great voice, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't think people were going to...
I hired you to do the theme song if you didn't.
I mean, I appreciate that. I think that when Sore Loser was done, and like, shout out to Namir Blade, he produced it. Him and we were talking a lot about it, and he was like, bro, like, this is a hit. And I was like, I don't know. People ain't going to like this.
No, I think they will.
You know, and people did. They loved it, and it kind of shocked me. I was like, "Oh, y'all liked? Oh, okay, cool. I can do more of these."
Yeah, you can sing now.
Yeah, and yeah, for real. And so, Sore Loser was the whole concept. Came from just effectively feeling like. So there's a word in Japanese culture for basically like men who don't have a job and aren't going outside and are basically like NEETs, which are just like people that are like non-educational, not in any kind of training or anything like
what
that.
What is that word?
It's called, the word is hikikomori. And
okay.
so,
Ohayou gozaimasu.
Yeah. Gozaimashita.
Gomen nasai.
Gomen nasai.
Nihongo wa wakarimasen.
Yamero. Okay. So.
Which means, I'm sorry, I don't understand Japanese.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
So
Right.
hikikomori, basically,
Yeah.
it is just, it translates to a term that is like someone who stays inside all day, doesn't leave the house for any reason or any circumstance.
I like
and
those.
I felt
they
like,
have all sorts of little names like that.
yeah,
for different
it was such an appropriate term too for quarantine and how I was feeling. I was feeling like kind of cagey and just like, and I'm a person who loves alone time. I love being able to like spend time by myself and with myself. But after so much of it, I was just like, okay, I kind of feel like maybe this is not normal at this point. Like at first I was like,
you need some social interaction.
I can hang, you know, a couple years of quarantine, so whatever, I'll be fine. And like about a year and a half in, I was just like, oh, like about a year in, almost a year, and I was like, oh, I'm going crazy. So,
yeah, as we all were.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that compounding with emotional fallouts from these situationships, I think had me in a situation where I was like, you know, I need to reestablish my self-worth. And because the way that I emotionally process things is through my music, that's the way that I come to conclusions about things and work through things. Sponsored by
the Hollywood Burbank Airport.
They have 2 lanes.
Delta Airlines.
There is no difference between the drop-off and the pickup terminal.
Yeah, Jetball.
But it is cheaper than
You too can fly
LAX.
a private jet right out of Van Nuys and land it at Burbank.
You too can take a trip down the street in a private jet.
Okay.
What was I saying?
What were we saying?
I was talking about.
2 years of sitting.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
After sitting and
After we
feeling
got
like
out.
a hikikomori and another defining trait of a hikikomori is that they don't know how to interact with the opposite sex. Socially. So it's like whenever they're like trying to talk to women or like whatever, it's like really awkward and they're like, I don't know if you like me or if I'm just like, what am I doing for real? And so like I was feeling all of that and I was like, you know what, I need something to like put a ground underneath my feet so I can really stand firm and be like, this is starting level where I'm at, you know. And so the whole idea of like, you know, like no controllers, I don't play, that just like kept playing in my head when I was listening to the beat. I was like, I'm not playing this game, I'm not playing any games. I didn't come here to play games despite people constantly trying to like pick up the controller, all you got to do is play the game. And I'm like, I'm not gonna play the game though, because I know the rules of the game and I hate the rules because everyone loses in this game, so it's stupid. And yeah, so and then that was ironic. So that was the first song, one of the first songs I wrote in LA, and Care For Me was one of the last songs I recorded before I left Nashville. Care For Me was recorded this was around the time of the Dreamville sessions. They had done a session in Atlanta where they invited a bunch of different producers and artists and things like that to, I think, like a weekend or a couple weeks of a writing session to make an album. So a couple of the cats in the city in Nashville saw what was going on and realized, oh, they have some resources as well. They had a house. Shout out to Black City, by the way. They're super dope dudes. And
They're from Nashville?
They're from Nashville. Yeah. Super awesome.
Right on.
And they were like, yo, we're going to do kind of a similar thing, but on a smaller scale. So they did a 3-day weekend retreat it was like a writing camp, but it was the first one that all of the Nashville writers, producers, and rappers with, I think, any degree of prominence or connection to the scene in the city were in the same building for any period of time. And this is all pre-quarantine for this song, and it's ironic because there's a lot of just, I think, mental kind of static that happens when people haven't communicated a lot in artistry, and especially when you have a small city, small scene like that. So, you know.
Where's my shotgun?
Where is it? Shotgun?
Wait, no, I'm just joking.
Hold it down.
I got a BB gun though.
We're in California. What's a shotgun? I don't even know what that is.
Fuck, man.
But yeah, so at this session, it was one of the first times that like all of these different artists were in the same room, and so many of us, I think as artists and just being the competitively natured people we were, had kind of I call it silent beef, because it's like I didn't actually have problems with this person, but in my head I'm like, oh, they did that, they was copying my thing, or they did this and that. But then when you get in a room with these people, you see that all of you just really think similarly, and you all conceptualize and idealize about things similarly. So it's like, okay, we're all just kind of pulling from the same inspiration and the same muse. So it's not really like we're copying each other. We're all just trying to be the best versions of ourselves with that. And so Care For Me was one of those songs that I showed up with on the second day, because the first day I was at the session, I was a little intimidated. I was a little like, I don't know my place. I'm a very quick writer. I like to show up. I can write a whole verse in 10 minutes. If you don't like it, I'll write a whole new one in another 10 minutes. But I was a little nervous because I was like, I was around all of my influences and a bunch of people that I hadn't had access to before. That
a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, so it was a little intimidating, and and as someone who didn't necessarily know everyone, because a lot of the Nashville scene is like they grew up together. A lot of these cats went to the same high schools. They went to the same, graduation parties, all of this. And as someone who was from Franklin, which is like not the city per se,
right? The suburb
of Nashville, as it is now. But it kind of made me really appreciate how far I'd come, but also be like, oh shit, I have so much work to do. So the second day I showed up to the session, and that night after the first day, I actually called one of my producer friends who was engineering at the session, and I was like, hey, can you send me like some beats to like go to this session with tomorrow? Because like I feel like I want to be able to have something.
Show up with something ready.
Yeah, something ready,
something,
and so
sketch.
Exactly. And so I had pretty much the sketch, which was just the hook, that care for me. And that was like the first thing that came in my head when I had heard that beat. And so I put the hook down, and then like while I was recording the hook, artists were just walking through the house and listening to different things, and I was recording like the living room session, or the living room setup, and one of the big homies came and sat down on the couch and started rolling up, and he was just like, he heard me, he was like, yo, do the hook or whatever, and I was like, I did the hook. He was like, bro, yes, that's a fire, like let's do it. And so I was like, oh, you fuck with that? Oh, okay, cool, we gonna do that then. And then I laid the hook, and I hadn't even intended to write a verse for it. I was just kind of like, oh, this is a hook, y'all can do whatever, this is just for the session or whatever. And then my homie OG laid like a hook part and a verse, and then Case Arnold, like shout out to Case, like that man is one of the illest writers. He sat on the couch, and like while we were recording our parts, he wrote his whole verse on the couch, and then stood up and performed it like fucking perfectly on the first or second take. It was crazy.
That is cool.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. And then I had that my end verse part. I knew that I wrote that while Case was rapping his. Case inspired me. I was like, oh shit, I can write. I can write. Got that too. Okay. Shit, fuck yeah. So then I did that, and then we were playing later that night. We were playing back some of the not the bounces, just some of the sessions from that day. And one of my OGs, Petty, up to that point, we hadn't had any musical collaborations or anything, and he was like by far the most intimidating person to me, because he's like an amazing lyricist. He's one of the probably most like well-rooted people in Nashville when it comes to artistry. And he heard the song, and he was like, send me this, I'm gonna write a verse to this. He was like, I'm not gonna write it like right now.
So how many people do you have on there?
I think it's 4 people, myself included. So it's OG, Case, and Petty, and then myself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it was,
what a great story.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Petty sent me his verse like 2 weeks later when I was in Atlanta doing I was down there for a show or something. And I got it at like 12 a.m. and I listened to it, and it was so fucking good. I ran it back for like an hour straight. I was like, this is everything. I was like, this is the best verse. Oh my God. This is what this song needed. But yeah, so that was
so cool.
So they ironically were not about the same person, but the thematics of how well they worked together, both in contrast and in subject matter, I felt really worked for this project. And
that's cool.
I felt like gave people a different side of me. Helped open up people to seeing that there was a lot more than just like deep, moody raps.
Yeah, well, it's a great EP.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are we still going over here? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, my next question was who's on that with you, but you just told me. Okay. Your 2019 release, Signs of the Times.
Yes.
Seems to be a personal journey, starting with the first song, Jermaine.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that journey and Jermaine?
Hell yeah, absolutely, man. So Signs of the Time was...
It's a great album, by the way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was... I I guess, my first like relative artistic contribution, I think, to both the Nashville scene at the time and also just my own career. I felt like I didn't have a staple piece. Like with shirts and clothing companies, they have, this is our shirt, it has a logo on it, that's us, you know what I'm saying? And so for this, it was like, I need something that's like, you hear that, you're like, oh shit, this is this man. It's establishing some sort of foundational level. Oh, you're fine. We've got propellers, we've got planes, trains, and automobiles.
1960s airplane with this 1960s engine.
They just got in from Havana.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
It was about the T-shirt company.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So establishing
my own sound and brand effectively.
Yeah.
And so the whole journey with Signs at the time was kind of wild. I made the project in a little less than a year, and it was done in several like 12-hour sessions. At the time I was working full time, so whenever I'd have an off day, I would be calling my homie Jack. Shout out to Jack Eller, by the way, one of the illest engineers in all of DeVille and probably the South in general. And him and his roommate Jake, they were just monsters on production. Like they were just making beats that sounded like I was like I don't even know if I can rap good enough, but I'm going to rap good enough to be on these beats now, and really helping fuel that inspiration. I was traveling a lot at the time whenever I could, going to Atlanta, going to New York, and just trying to finesse my schedule however I could to get as much time to record and things. But I think having work, feeling like it was constantly standing in the way, just like gave me a different kind of fire when it came to being in those sessions. And I was knocking out 3 songs in a session, and I'm like, I need mixes by next week, and I have, I'm going to get paid this day, and I'm going to send you the money this day. Yeah. Exactly. It was a different level of determination. Yeah. And I think that so the whole journey to that was just like, all right, I have a bunch of things I want to talk about. What is a concise way I can give them to people, but also kind of put a really good pin in this sound. Like this is a sound that I'm comfortable with, that I feel like I've mastered largely. So like this is what I can give y'all at any time, but I can also work on these other sounds in the meantime. So I think the actual project was done in the end of 2018, and I didn't release it until 2019 because I like to have at least like 4 or 5 months before releases to get my life together.
to make sure you wait a minute here.
Usually, and it's fucked up too because usually my releases always fall around some major thing, like I'm moving or something, or like some other thing. It's like my cousin's getting married or some shit. So it's just like there's always some life thing happening. I'm like, let me go like handle this shit too and be a person also before this music comes out. But yeah, and Jermaine was that fucking song is crazy because
Jermaine's your dad, right?
Yeah, Jermaine's my dad. Shout out to Pops. That's my biological Pops. And when I wrote the song at the time, I didn't know who he was other than just like knowing of him. I didn't know like what. That's not true. I seen a picture of him, but that was really it. So I hadn't been in contact with him or anything. And I recorded Jermaine in New York actually. And I recorded, shout out to my homie Jeremy, recorded it in his basement.
Jeremy's basement.
Jeremy's basement. And it was one of those songs where I didn't know if it was ever gonna come out because of how like real and raw it was. I was like, I don't know if I can release this, and
sensitive.
And not to say that I have a problem sharing parts of my life. It was just one of those things. It's like I didn't want to create more distance between me and my pops. Even though we hadn't met, I didn't want him to feel like there was like me, because I wasn't salty, I wasn't hurt. I all of the things I said on that record were like more so like, damn, I wish you was around. Like, you know what I mean? Not like I'm mad that you weren't here. It's more like, man, it'd have been cool if you'd have been around, dog. Like kind of deal. And
you've since contacted him?
Oh yeah. Actually, I think either right before I moved out here or right after I moved out here to LA, I got in contact with my pops, and he had already heard the song too, and then like he didn't, but he didn't know. And then we talked. He was like, I kind of figured, but I wasn't 100% sure. And then I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, you my pops. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but like, hey, what up? Like I'm in this man's Facebook DMs, like, hey dad, what's happening? Like
that's cool.
And and it's been awesome getting to know him and my uncles and my aunties and the rest of the family, and they're all super supportive of my music. And
that's cool. That's really cool.
It was really cool. And so Jermaine was really just about like, how do I tell my personal perspective on this, because I felt like when I had even just talking about like biological dad stuff, people automatically make assumptions about how I feel or how I should act or how like
stereotypes.
if I was with you, if I was in your body, I would have done blah blah blah. But I'm like, but you wouldn't have though, because like if you were me, you wouldn't have done that shit. So you know, but yeah,
you can't be me.
You can't be me. So you can't tell me what you would have done. I'm sorry. But yeah, man. So you know, Signs of the Times was really one of those things that helped me build a lot of confidence and really set a standard, I think, for myself when it came to my quality of music as well. My whole thing has been like big, clean sound. That's what I want my sound to be, just as big and clean, everything you hear.
Well,
I wish I
sound.
could hear this in a stadium. You know? Thank you. I appreciate that. Stack your money, smoke your tree, shit. You dig? Niggas on top, you ain't doing that shit. You just work.
Hey, locked out of my conscience. Speakers doing the knocking. Promise not to step out the office without the smoothest product. So till then it's clocking in and heating up cups of ramen, bumping on shit like in chronic. Trying to find some solace. Been making these hits like hailstorms. Sober Jordans in rare form. Doing this shit since year one of high school, where they ain't cheer on anybody but the jocks. Got hated on cause I'm smart and niggas really couldn't stand when I took a stab at the art. Paradox, how I dropped and started climbing up the charts. How unheard of, barely left the house but made the paper fly. Innovated the complacent, fake positive, fill the sauce, but embraced the silent claim to all of pain, pleasure, and loss. Pandora's box was full of emotions, clogging the drain. No, they label me insane cause I'm playing stages in plain clothes. I ain't come to play though, they tried to hand me a halo. I just knew I found myself in the stars like Galileo. Going back and forth and back, corner store, can't afford rap. Spend my last 20 on gas, praying that we make it back and forth and back. Bungee cord gon' bounce us back. Spill my 40 in the cab, pretend it's a Cadillac. Back and forth and back, corner store, can't afford rap. Spend my last 20 on gas, praying that we make it back and forth and back. Bungee cord gon' bounce us back. Spill my 40 in the cab, pretending it's a Cadillac. Now I'm madder than the first 5 seconds of some wrath. Quoting Platt, hold the snaps, load the gas, fold your back. Told you that, like your dad. You ain't back if you ain't stacking. Stop your slacking, only action, overreacting. Keep asking like Jordan, what am I lacking? Ambitions, missions, and passions. You rather hate on the craftsman to chase after Insta actress than double down on your passions. I quadruple mine like Jackson's. Niggas dying over brands like Gucci sponsoring caskets, but images ain't fooling anybody that's peeping game. I don't say a thing, you self-exposed, I stay out of your way as I make another tunnel, collecting money from under the underbelly of jungles. Rubber banded like Gumby, just deflecting each assumption. You not my dad or my cousin, not auntie, grandma, or uncle. Then you should just hold your tongue in, cause everybody got 2 cents, but to us that ain't worth nothing. So why not put in effort instead of remaining someone who go back and forth and back? Corner store, can't afford rap. Spend my last 20 on gas, praying that we make it back and forth and back. Bungee cord gon' bounce us back. Spill my 40 in the cab, pretend it's a Cadillac. Back and forth and back. Corner store, can't afford rap. Spend my last 20 on gas, praying that we make it back and forth and back. Bungee cord gon' bounce us back. Spill my 40 in the cab.
Part 2. All right. So we're back with Jordan Webb.
Hello.
And, Jordan, get right off your 2019 release, Signs of the Times. Seems like a search for a renaissance. What about that?
Yo, that's a really good word you just used.
That was a carefully chosen word.
That's smart, man. So in I think it's 2018 actually, I started to have this notion of a new creative renaissance that was going to happen in 2020. I didn't know why, I didn't know what was going to cause it. I just started to have this like feeling. But so much of my writing derives from the spiritual. And so when I get promptings, because I guess that's the way to put it, it's like prompts. I get like spiritual prompts, and I feel like those fuel my creativity. So at the time in 2018, it was like this idea of renaissance kept coming in my head, like renaissance, like there's going to be a
So I got the word right.
Renaissance. Perfect. Literally the perfect word. And yes, so get right. Actually, so shout out to my homie Tank. He's otherwise known as JS Kodiak. He sang the hook on there. I wrote the hook and the song, and I was driving to the studio with Tank, and I was like really nervous about singing the hook because I was like, this melody is like a little too complex for me, and like Tank was like, well, sing it for me. He was like, just sing it for me.
This is where you're going to see one of those little Cali High things. It's going to go.
We'll be right back with this transmission.
Meet George Jetson.
But so I sang the Get Right hook for Tank while we were in the car on the way to the studio, and he like sang it back to me perfectly, and I was like, oh, that's great. I'm like, yeah, you'll sing the hook and I'll just do some harmonies and we'll just make this shit work. And that song was cool because I felt like it was like back to like using artistic juxtaposition to put different concepts together. Like, Jermaine, all about my pops. So I was like, Get Right is about me and my mom's dynamic. And
really?
Yeah, it kind of a nod to it. Less so directly about like, this is me and my mom, but more of like,
shout out to mom.
Shout out to mom. I'm always working, but in the back of my head, like, I know my mom's just like praying for me and wants me to get right. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Oh my goodness.
So, mom, what's your mom's name?
Kendra.
Kendra.
Yeah, shout out to Kendra. She's awesome. And so, yep, it had a buddy with it. Huh?
A follow-up.
Of course.
Yeah. Spotter.
Plane's just trying to get right.
Spot my plants. Hey, wait, it's illegal now.
Right.
Okay. So Kendra.
Yeah, so Kendra, she's awesome. Always has been a supporter of me, like, taking care of myself. Though
that is really great.
Yes, super great. And her biggest thing was the method and tactics with which I was doing it, which we disagreed on for a long time. But I think that song, when I was writing it, I was like, I need something artistically different for myself at the time. I was trying a lot of different sounds on, like, hats, and I was like, nah, not this one. Like, this is a headband. I don't really like headbands anymore,
Yeah.
And
were you talking about snare drums?
I was talking about a
real headband.
Real headband.
Okay.
Yeah, like I was really trying on different artistic hats.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I'm like, wait a minute, hi-hats? No,
hi-hats, 808s? What is he? Does he put compression on the snare? I don't.
Sorry, I'm not a drummer.
I wasn't in drum line. I don't know. Yeah.
So headbands, hats.
Yeah.
Right?
So headbands, hats, trying on all kinds of different sounds, trying to find something that really worked, trying to find that renaissance for myself.
A little bit of a metaphor there.
Definitely. And so when I wrote Get Right, I was like, okay, this is either going to be really cool or really corny, and it's not going to be anything in between. And like, I was a little nervous about that record too. But when we went in the studio and cut it afterwards, I was like, okay. I was like, this might be the one that makes or breaks the fan base, but like I stand by it. It sounds great. The production sounded amazing. And,
that's a great song.
And
I hate to editorialize on my own.
No, you're fine. I appreciate
endeavors,
that.
But
no, I'm glad that people like that one too. That I think people's response to that one was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. But it was one of those records that was like, this is the anthem of being like a 22-year-old. You know what I mean? This is the anthem of trying to get it right. And every time you try to do some shit, everybody is just like, figure it out. And like I used to joke with my grandma about that. I'm like, yo, if I had a fucking nickel for every time someone said figure it out, I wouldn't have to figure anything out. I wouldn't have to figure shit out.
Pay somebody else to do it.
Pay someone else to figure the shit out. Goddamn. Yeah, man.
Well, that's a very cool tune.
Hell yeah, thank
You've
you.
described your style as retro-futuristic,
Yes.
and I think that's a great description. But can you expand on that concept, even though it seems to be like a paradox and an oxymoron?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess a really simple way to put it is like taking the best of the old and taking the best of the new and mixing them together. And that's what I try to do. That's kind of my North Star, as like corporate companies say. That's our North Star. That's what our guiding principle is. It's like that's my guiding principle, is to effectively honor the old by uplifting it and applying it, but still developing it further by taking it into the future, doing different things with it. Taking influences from my childhood that I grew up listening to, like Stevie Wonder and like the Isley Bros, and you know, these amazing singers and bands that like could really sing, and listening to 90s rap and listening to 2000s Wayne, and growing up like right after the No Limit era, and then seeing what they were doing and being like, how can I do that but like with me and who I am, and apply a lot of the things they were doing in the same ways now, but without having to just steal them. But how can I develop these concepts? Because like, what would they have done if they had this budget and it was this time? What would, you know, how can we take this idea and make it more than what it was to become something that other people see and are like, oh, I know what I can do with that idea too next. So it becomes this kind of chain of progression and momentum and growth for everybody.
Yeah, well, your beats, you know, there was, what was it, 2018 release? You used a neo soul sample.
Oh yeah.
That was, what was that, 5 something or other? 5 Deep.
5 Deep. Yeah. That was on Memory Bank. That was my 2018 release.
I'm gonna get to that one. I'm working my way down there.
gotta work your way back to the Memory Bank. You can't start there.
No, of course not, because you can't remember. So you know what I mean. I'll remember in a minute.
All right.
So can you describe working with the Fourth Eye Tribe and what that's meant for you?
Yeah. It's been amazing. Thus far, I've been in 3 art collectives. This one is this is more of a business than anything, honestly. And I think that's one of the things that's cool. Really cool about it, is that we're very tactical in our deployment of resources, of artists, of assistants.
I have a business management degree in case you need anybody else.
Oh, that's awesome. Right. We can keep that in mind. We have to talk some endeavors.
Yeah, just before I became an English teacher.
Oh, perfect. You can work the words and the contracts. Amazing.
Exactly.
But so after, I think, so actually, funny enough, I got hit up by one of the members of Fourth Eye Tribe back when I was in Nashville 3 years ago on Instagram, and they were just like, hey, man, like, I love your music. You know, I'm with this art collective. And at the time, I think they were just an art collective. They hadn't actually formalized any of it. So it was like, hey, you know, we make music and we are multimedia. We do XYZ. You know, but, you know, if you're ever in New Orleans, like, let us know. Or if we're in Nashville, we'll let you know. We can try to get some work in. That time never came about. 3 years later, I'm in LA, they're in LA, and now I'm having a meeting with them in my living room.
There you go.
And yeah, it was one of those things that I think it was like one of those opportunities and those moments where it was like when I met Rasan and when I met the rest of the gang, it was like I felt like I'd already known them. And that's how I felt about all of the people that have been in my life to this point, that have stayed around. I've been like, oh, I've met you in another life, or I've met you before this somehow. Like, I feel like I know you, I'm familiar with you. And
isn't that wild?
It's so wild. Like, so wild. It was such a strange feeling. So yeah, so I had one meeting with Rasan, and then I think maybe the next week I met with Rasan and Prolific and K-Wix, and after that it was just like, okay, cool, like, what do y'all need that I can help you with? Because a lot of times people, and I have to like clarify this when I work with people in business too, because it's like I went to business, like went to school for music business. So like I'm very familiar with the business side of things.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, very steeped in that. So you know, I had a lot of insight to offer, and was just like, hey, I don't want to like tell you stuff you know, and I don't want to like try to help in ways you don't need help. So what is it exactly that I can help with? How can I contribute? You know, I don't want to just sit at the table and just be at the table waiting for a plate to be passed to me. And so at the time it was just like really it was like transportation scheduling and just having another place to record that wasn't, you know, a cramped apartment with 7 people in it for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, I kind of, and that's one of the really cool things about just I was very intentional with the space I got out here being a 1-bedroom, me being by myself, because when I was in Nashville, some of the most, I think, healing and grounding artistic experiences I've had has been going and hanging out with like one of my OGs or someone that I looked up to musically, or just had a place for me to go that I could just go sit, smoke, hang out, talk, listen to new music, get ideas, get inspired, just chop up some game.
Peaceful space,
and curate those conversations and those interactions where people feel like they can be themselves and not feel like they have to be like, oh, I just can't be like this over here. And it's just like, I'm not going to judge you or whatever. Like, you can let it fly in here. No one is here to judge you either. My roommate's not going to come out like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? That sounds weird. Like,
can you go to bed?
Yeah. Hey, it's kind of late. Would you quiet down a bit? You know? So I think that, you know, and that's like, and it's funny because I know that that's not like a thing that people, I don't think people are very cognizant that that's something I do intentionally to curate that space, but it's definitely something that like I like to be able to be the person.
Oh, you need your
to
own
have
space.
that space. Because I know people, and typically when
I
people,
got my little room there.
Yeah, you gotta have a little room.
Yeah.
You gotta have something, you know. And you know, and I'm only 26, but like I know when I was in my like earlier 20s, one of the biggest things was like I need to leave this place so I can go to somewhere else just to be away from where I'm at usually. You know, especially if I live with 4 or 5 people, like it's just a lot of mental static. And, it gets a little hairy sometimes.
It's like you know, the airwaves are kind of a little crowded and freaking disparate of emotional stress and this and that from other people, and gotta get away.
Especially when you have a bunch of creative people living together. I feel like that's
creative people.
Yeah, we have
creative people.
We have the ability to project, I think, our emotional energy outside of ourselves a lot.
Yeah, it's like X-Men or something.
Yeah, like literally, like you can feel it. Like you walk in, you're like, oh,
something wrong.
Something is amiss here. Something's fucked up. I don't know what the hell it is.
Can you take your laser eyes away?
Yeah, can you redirect those laser eyes somewhere else, please? Because you're about to burn a hole in me. Thanks. but
well, it's just great to be with a creative bunch. You know,
definitely.
I mean, I've had bands before, and that's the closest I've ever had to having a group of people that I could create with, and they were very creative. Yeah, you know what I mean. But I never had like a whole tribe.
Yeah, like a tribe,
you know
a whole team, and like everyone is so hungry and so determined to do what they want to do and envision their success and achieve that success, that it relit a fire under my ass. Because like, you know, I've been rapping now for 10 years.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
For you guys to be able to just pull up and help me with my new sound, new theme, and the way you guys just recorded it here, and all you were singing your parts, I was impressed. You know,
thank you.
Just sign me up for the tribe.
Hey man, you know, that's what we're here to do. We're here to you know, execute and be diligent in our execution and make fun shit and do fun shit.
Well, that was a great day, and
that was an amazing
love
day.
Those guys.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to Namir and
shout out to Namir, K-Wix. Namir is the honorary member. We've dubbed him an honorary 4th Eye Tribe member. You know,
excellent, as he should be.
Of course,
because he did an amazing dub. Track.
He did.
The bass
he
and
threw
the
that
drums
shit together so fast too. Crazy, man.
Not to mention the background vocals.
Right.
So if you go to Apple Music and you look up Jordan Webb, we find you on all sorts of collabs.
True.
So let me just say, we got Namir Blade, we've got Spellworks, Super Struggle Bros, Traza, Sir Illington. And those are just a few. So you want to shout out to some of those people?
Hell fucking yeah. Shout out to the homies. Shout out to Sir Illington. Shout out to Traza. That's funny as fuck. I forget about that Traza feature. That's like one of my favorite verses that I've written, and like I forget it's there. So yeah, shout out to Traza. Shout out to Namir Blade. That's my cohort. We have a rap duo, Super Struggle Bros. We released our own EP as Super Struggle Bros. I think.
You and Namir?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
about 2 years ago. So yeah, make sure y'all go check that out.
What about that song Phoenix?
Yeah, that
Phoenix,
is a great dollar on my line.
Yeah.
Please connect.
Oh my
please
God,
respond.
Great recording. on that one.
Thank you. That and yeah, I've been I've been on Twitch lately, and people's Twitch streams jumping in there like, hey, can I request a song? Put on Kids Meal by Super Struggle Bros. I'll just leave, and they're just like, oh my god, this song is so cool. And I'm like,
that is a
hey.
cool song.
Yeah, man.
So, and you keep in touch with the Nashville crew, and
yeah, absolutely.
they come out and visit every once in a while.
Yeah, another part of me being out here and getting the space that I got is so I could be an anchor for a lot of cats out in Nashville.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, my whole philosophy is like, pull up, let's get some work done. You know, that's how all my OGs, that was the same level of respect, and I think just dignity they treated me with. Like, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to set your opportunities up, but if you have work to do in the city, pull up. You can stay on my couch. You can stay on the air mattress, whatever, and like, I got the car, so I can take you over there, you know, whatever, and we'll get it going. Yeah.
So, your 2018 EP, Memory Bank, it has a lot of jazz samples, and it just seems like blending of styles and genres. And you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was probably my most selfish project, and I did that first because I knew, I was like probably no one is gonna get this, so I'm just gonna do this shit and get it out of the way because I like this and I want to get this concept and sound out there for myself.
Oh, that's great.
Because when I touch on it later, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, he wasn't doing no jazz rap, he not no jazz rapper, he don't fuck with jazz for real. It's like, no, motherfucker, I was fucking with that shit way long ago, like way long. Like, little boy growing up, like I couldn't listen to none but Christian music and jazz, so it was like that was what I learned to like fuck with when I was growing up rhythmically. That was how I learned how to condense, or why I guess I should condense a lot of what I was saying. I was like, okay, I can make this like flow smoother on this if I say it this way and with this style. And you know, I felt like with that project,
just gives you a little bit more texture to work with.
Exactly. It was more cinematic almost. You know, I wanted to create like what would like a Nashville noir sound like, you know, and like that's not something I think anyone has made.
That is a great way of describing it, Nashville noir.
Yeah.
You know, there's an English guy, Brian Ferry. He was a rock and roll guy, but he had a lot of style. And somehow that album reminds me of Roxy Music and Brian Ferry. I know it's a completely different genre and different generation, but it just has such a cool feeling with the jazz.
Yeah.
Well, there was a band like 10 or 15, 20 years ago, something 3, and they used like Blue Note jazz samples, and they did the hip hop over it.
Oh, shit.
Do you remember them? Probably not.
I don't. I need to find them. I love jazz. I love jazz rap.
Yeah, yours is even cooler than that.
Guilty pleasure of mine is just like it's some shit that I like. A lot of times I won't listen to it when other people are around because like y'all ain't gonna appreciate this shit. Y'all gonna clown it. But like I love, like growing up, one of my favorite rappers was Guru, MC Guru. He was so fucking cool, and I was just like, I just want to like talk my shit over jazz beats. But that kind of grew into like how can I make something that is reflective of where I was at the time, which was all over the fucking place in Nashville. It was this way, that way. I was working for 2 different jobs at the same time. I was, you know, middlemaning certain sales of certain materials and all kinds of fun things. And it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, this is a movie. Like this feels like a movie. Life feels like a movie right now. How do I put this on a record? How do I show people this? And what soundtrack do I give them? And I was like, yeah, some noir shit, some jazz raps, something that's, in a way, it was to develop my sound, but in another way, it was just because I fucking wanted to. Like, you know what I mean? I knew that it was like,
it has a very noir sound. And
thank you. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely, bro.
And shout out to Spellworks. He produced the intro on Memory Bank.
Did he?
Produced 13 letters in. Yep. And
13 letters gets you to M, right?
Yes, it does.
Is there a certain reason for that 13 letter?
Mm-hmm.
And it is?
Millions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Get me to the M's, you know?
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, and that.
Am I stupid? Or, I mean, is that a
no,
cultural reference?
No, it's not. It's a thing that probably flew over fucking everyone's head who listened to the project.
Right. I'm like A, B, C, D.
Yeah. Yo, it's funny because when I released it, I had people texting me. They were like, dude, I literally had to count the fucking letters to figure out what it started with. I was like, yeah, M, dog. Like, I'm talking about millions.
Yeah. So what are you working on now?
So now I have Oh, I'm so fucking excited. I like get giddy
Really?
every time I talk
Okay.
about this shit. Yeah, because
I gotta have some early cuts now.
yeah, man. No, for sure. I actually brought the laptop so I can play
Did
you
you?
some shit after.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man.
We're gonna roll
so
one up.
me and Spellworks have actually been working on the collaboration album.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've been working on it for about 3 months now. Since he released his project, and I believe it was Mind Gems 4, and then I had that song on there called Heavy Trees.
Mm-hmm.
And we have another plane taking off.
The other way. And that one's like freaking grooming freaking 1970 freaking something.
I know,
with
that's
the
like
loud engine.
Yeah,
fuckers.
I was gonna say it's
Not
like,
a
that looks like
whisper jet.
it's an old private plane. I can
Yeah.
tell. Shit loud. Oh man.
So we were talking
About the upcoming projects.
Upcoming
Yes,
project.
so me and Spellworks are working on an album. We've been locked in, and it is fucking. It's a whole movie. We're putting together something that's just some next level rap, hip hop shit that I think is just gonna like, you know, it has something for everybody on it in the most like serious way. Like in a way that like is natural, it progresses, it gives you the opportunity to feel like you're in the story at certain points. And
Is there a name for the
the name is
working
still
project?
the name is still pending. I'm very, and like I saw you got a little thing on there about spellings and name spellings too. Like as you can tell, I'm very particular about my naming of things and how I spell
well, you know, I
certain
was an English
things,
teacher,
too.
so
No, and the thing is English was my favorite subject in
Yep.
high school. So yeah,
So many rappers, their favorite subject was English.
yeah, I loved English. I loved English.
I don't mean just to label you as a rapper.
Right,
You
rapper.
know?
I'm a rapper.
Jordan Webb.
Jordan Webb the rapper. But no, I loved English, and I think that it's great that you have an English background, because I feel like a lot of the shit that I say and a lot of the concepts that I put together go over people's heads because they're not thinking in an artistic sense about words and the way the words can be manipulated and played with and things like that. But
A lot of people don't listen, period.
you know, that's that too, right?
Closely ordered, yeah.
Right, Jay-Z said it, right?
Shout
Like,
out
do
to
you
the
fools
listeners.
listen to music or do you skim through it? You know, so me and Spellworks, we're still working on the title for that. But honestly, like it's funny because usually the title is the first thing I have and then everything else comes after. But like the title being the last thing has given us so much time and ability to just do what we want and make what we want. It's given us the freedom to make what we want and then figure out afterwards what we want to call it.
Put yourself in a drawer or a box yet.
Right. It's like I'm not gonna call it like a car if it's not assembled yet. So but so I've been working on that with him, and then I've actually been working on my next solo release as well. That is called Quarter Century. It is already done. It is being produced content-wise. We're putting
Quarter Century.
Quarter Century.
You're going to be 25.
I'm actually 26, so Quarter Century is about the first 25 years of my life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a mini album. I'm not going to say it's an EP because that's a misrepresentation of what it is. It's definitely a mini album. It's 7 songs. And it is an experience. It's definitely a journey. And
I can't
the
wait to hear
project
it.
with me and Spellworks is going to, I think, get people engaged in the universe that we're building enough to be like, oh, what the fuck is Quarter Century? And then it's like, oh shit, this is some whole other shit. It's just like, yeah.
That's cool, man. I can't wait to like give my listeners a chance to check it out.
Absolutely. And then of course, me and the Fourth Eye Tribe, we have a fuck ton of collaborations, singles of all varieties dropping soon. We're working on a tape as well now, so we've got a lot of great things in the works.
So that leads me to ask, how do we find your music? And I noticed one of your pieces of music on iTunes was spelled Jordan with Jordn.
Yes.
Right? And then other things are spelled Dan.
Yep, Jordan Webb.
Webb with your last name. So basically we look for Jordan Webb.
Yes, look for Jordan Webb. There's a fun thing. We're all going to learn this
Webb
fun
with
thing
2 B's.
about, Webb with 2 B's. Today we're going to learn a fun thing about the music industry. You can't delete artist pages once you make them.
Right.
So if I have a Jordan artist page that I don't use, that name has been discontinued. However, I cannot delete it because you can't delete artist names.
Wild.
On platforms. So mentally and socially, like that name doesn't exist for me anymore.
Can you link them
but,
in any
like,
way, or do you have to actually?
the best I could do was the little profile picture that's like new name is Jordan Webb, so people don't go there and like, where's all the music at? I like this guy's music. What happened to it? It's just this is the new artist name, and it's not a new artist name. It was just one of those things where like I had to make a decision of like, okay, I'm starting to see the reason I went by Jordn for so long was because there was no other Jordans. There was no rapper that was a Jordan. The only association people had with Jordan was either a football player or Michael Jordan. That was really it. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll do Jordn. That way it's still my name. It's a little bit of a misspelling just because I always made a joke that when I dropped out of college, I didn't give a fuck about A's anymore. So I was like, it was a little fun play on that, you know.
Oh, well.
You know, and then I started to see, you know, in the city.
But then you corrected me when I misspelled it.
Right. I did.
So now he still cares about A's.
I do care about A's now. I do, especially in tags and stuff like that. But I guess my sentinel senses started to stir when I started seeing. There was actually specifically there's one artist in Nashville and there's another artist in LA, and both of them
don't use the
they were going by Jordan, but they were going by like Jordan something, and it was messing my like searches up on Google because I would like search on occasion to see. So I was like, and I hit the dude up out here actually about it, and he was just like, LOL, I'm not changing it. And I was just like, bruh, but you don't even make music anymore. Well, okay, fine. And then Google was like, well, you're gonna have to talk to him if you want the Google panel about your blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh well, fuck it. I'm just gonna go by Jordan Webb. That's my name. That's my imprint.
Simple enough.
It's memorable. When I also act and do modeling and things. And very funny side note, I was at a Cracker Barrel training video shoot in Tennessee. The good old days of those great acting opportunities you get in Nashville. But
okay, makeup people.
Yep.
Hold on. A leaf fell in your hair.
Oh, thank you so much. My hair collects leaves.
Hey, it's better to have some than not.
Hey, better than to be dry during the drop.
Not the leaves, the hair.
Oh, that too. That too. No, that also.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was at the shoot for this Cracker Barrel training video, and there was like this older black dude there, and he was super dope, and we were just chopping it up all night long, and like sometimes shoots run into the wee hours. I was there from like 1 p.m. until like 2:30 a.m. and so we're like all kind of delusional and tired, and we're just talking shit in the kitchen, and he was just like, he stopped me like mid sentence. We were joking about something. He was like, what's your name, young man? And I was like, my name? He was like, yeah, what's your name? I was like, my name is Jordan. He's like, Jordan what? I was like, Jordan Webb. He's like, damn, you sound famous. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, that sounds like a famous person name. And I was like, okay, cool. And then like a year later, I had to think about my artist name, and I was talking with my homie Namir, and he for a long time went by Rain, and he had then just was like, I'm just gonna go by Namir Blade. And I mean his fucking name to me, I was like, you sound like a fucking superhero. Like, why didn't you go by that already?
Sounds like a stage name as it is.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Namir Blade.
Namir Blade. So we were talking, and I was just like, bruh,
with
like
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, and my thing was like, I told him, I was like, I feel like eventually I'm gonna change my artist name to Jordan Webb anyway. I felt like that was just going to be an eventuality, you know, because of how authentic and how realistic and how raw my music is. And for searchability purposes, it's easier to tell people, hey, look up Jordan Webb than look up Jordn, because for some reason the spelling just messes with people.
Snoop brought us.
Yeah, exactly.
What is Snoop's real name?
I don't know. We should get him on
his last name,
is
right?
it? We should get him on the podcast and find out.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this. Snoop.
This is an invitation to come on Cali High.
A humble inquiry.
Yes. You know, we'll smoke with you back here.
Oh.
Okay.
They'll smoke with you.
We'll treat you like rap royalty.
It's a fact. They got
Jordan
espresso
will come
and
down
everything.
and be my ambassador.
Yeah, anything you need.
All right.
You know? But yeah, man. So I changed the name up several times. I had a whole bunch of old rap names. Started as Ace, and then it was Ace Webb, and then it was Jace Webb, and then it was Jace, and then it was it was Jordan with no
Jordan
A,
Webb
and now it's just Jordan Webb. So it's like fucking the shit I signed my papers with. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. But
all right, this is the last airplane we're gonna tolerate.
One more time for the good people.
One more time for the good people. So it's been amazing having Jordan Webb here today with us on Cali High. And I have one last question, Jordan. Who do you want to shout out to, and who do you appreciate, and what would you like to say to them?
Dang. Who do I want to shout out?
Well, we mentioned Kendra.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Kendra's the illest. Shout out to Patricia and Elliot. Those are my grandparents. They fucking awesome. Shout out to Namir Blades, ugly ass. Everybody needs to go find that man and tell him to move to LA. That's
He's not that ugly.
He's gorgeous. I just call him ugly because gotta keep him humble, you know. But yeah, shout out to him. Shout out to Nick Bison. Shout out to Rasan. Shout out to all the Fourth Eye Tribe. That's the family out in California. Shout out to Petty. Shout out to G Slab. Shout out to Ron Obasi. Shout out to Chuck Indigo. Those are all my Nashville homies. If you in LA and you really want to stun on people with your music taste, tap in with the Nashville homies. That's though they make music that sounds like shit you've already heard and just have forgotten about. You're like, wait, this is amazing. Like, why have I not heard of this before? And it's like, well, now you have, and now you can put everybody else on like I be doing all the fucking time. Shout out to Ro Marquez too. Fucking amazing. Black City, The Black Sun. Brian Brown, shout out to all of them. Those are all that's all family. Shout out to Pell too.
Nashville homies.
Pell is actually a NOLA homie, but all the rest of them are Nashville homies. And I just, shout out to anybody who's fucked with me and believed in me thus far. Shout out to Senzo, the whole Cali High crew. I appreciate y'all for real.
Thank you.
Wouldn't be here without it. So, I appreciate everybody. And if I know your name, then honestly, odds are you probably contributed to my life in some kind of way. So thank you. And thank whoever's listening.
Alrighty.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for coming, Jordan.
Hey, literally anytime.
All right.
Hey, hopefully next time I'm up here, Snoop Dogg will be here too.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah, or maybe Snoop Lion. We don't want to box him in.
No, we don't want to box him in.
Let him do him.
I mean, if he wants
to respect the OG,
play some reggae with us.
Yeah, we'll vibe out to some reggae.
Cool.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. Last shout out to my homie Intro too. He just moved out to LA from Nashville.
Welcome to Cali, Intro.
Fucking one of the illest artists I know from Nashville. He's got a new project coming out too.
So are we gonna have a party with all these people?
I don't see why we shouldn't have a party with all these people. Fucking jam, bring some guitars.
Wouldn't that be great?
Crack some beers.
I'll be my melodica.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, you got the melodica too. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Cali High out, folks.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, Jordan.
Of course. Peace out, good people. Peace and love.
Way too young to be feeling this old. Way too hot to be feeling this cold. Way too far to be fearing these goals. But you're way too long and you never get chosen. I'm way too young to be feeling this old. Way too hot to be feeling this cold. Way too far to be fearing these goals. But you're way too long and you never get chosen. Look, I got a really pressing question. What the fuck I gotta do to make it past your guessing? What more do I gotta do to straight up fucking lie to you? It's obvious that I supplied the sauce while you was spread thin. Might as well deny and brush us off as adolescent. Outbursts like responses after good word from the reverend. I heard the outskirts either where you started, where you headed. But really most of out here niggas miles from the trenches. Y'all so far from real, y'all so far from here. Raindrops on the lid, you not solid here. Always wasting time, always flapping lips. Might just cut you off, ain't no accident. Y'all so far from real, y'all so far from here. Raindrops on the lid, you dissolving here. Always wasting time, always flapping lips. Might just cut you off, ain't no accident. Just way too young to be feeling this old. Way too hot to be feeling this cold. Way too far to be fearing these goals. But you're way too long and you never get chosen. I'm way too young to be feeling this old. Way too hot to be feeling this cold. Way too far to be fearing these goals. But you're way too long and you never get chose. I'm too young, I'm too dumb, I'm stupid. I'm too sprung, I'm cool-tongued, I'm clueless. I'm cool, but that cool front is useless. Feeling doom when I'm going through it. I'm too young, I'm too dumb, I'm stupid. I'm too sprung, I'm cool-tongued, I'm clueless. I'm cool, but that cool front is useless. Feeling doom when I'm going through it. I'm too wise, live two lives and suit ties. I'm too tired to fuck with your new styles. Profuse pride, you new guys ain't too tight. But since I left, I don't know who's right. I'm too wise, live two lives and suit ties. I'm too tired to fuck with your new styles. Profuse pride, you new guys ain't too tight. But since I left, I don't know who's right.